There, Bafana legend tips South Africa for AFCON glory. South Africa needs new heroes. Yeah, I see what you mean. You've done a few interviews, but it's quite a bit that comes up here. But I mean, you were part of the 96. I mean, come on. Credibility-wise, are you kidding me? And you're just a legend in general, so it's all good. All right.
Appreciate it.
Welcome to the CS Duplessis Show. Thanks for liking and subscribing and spending time with us. We really appreciate it. Big shout out to our partners at Betway. Check out betway.co.za for more information. The Betway SA20 has been on. It's been phenomenal. And obviously, football plays such a huge part. So check out betway.co.za for more. We've got AFCON. We've got the Premier League, best league in the world. It's all happening. And we got someone who I've been a huge fan of for many, many years. I've been privileged to work with him in television studios, working on the Premier League. I think Andre Arendse, if I'm not mistaken, there was it a League Cup game? You, me, and Sean Bartlett were in the SuperSports studios when back in the day they still did Premier League and English football. And the pitch was frozen. And I think it was something like, I don't know if it was a Liverpool against like Scarborough or something, you know what I mean? It was something like that. But with a frozen pitch, we spent about half an hour talking about mushy peas and pies and getting hot tea at the game. And I remember there were a few journalists that wrote about what we were talking about at that time because we had to fill 30 minutes or whatever it was. But at that time, I loved working with you. And it's great to see you again, man. And yeah, how are things going these days?
I'll tell you what, it must have been one hell of a conversation we had back then, that we had journalists sort of
it was
talking about it and setting the scene. But I vaguely remember it.
Long time
and
ago.
it must have been filled with a little bit of nonsense because it doesn't spring to mind immediately when you mention that.
There was absolutely nonsense involved.
It was
but it was just great because at that time, working on that league and on those competitions, being able to tap into someone who's been there and done that. I mean, Fulham, Oxford, you name it. You and Sean were both part of that South African sort of influence on English football. And I mean, I think that was super cool to be able to share what you did on game day when it was frozen. No one wants to play in -2 degrees and sleet, but you have to, right?
You have to. And I had an experience of that myself back in the day. But just to take a step back further than that, we've got to talk about the platform that brought us there, and Sean will tell you the same. And with AFCON on at the moment, it was that AFCON back then in '96 that provided that platform for us to just go and fly away out the country and try and put down roots in Europe and build careers over there. And so we were very fortunate, both Sean and I. And if I speak from a personal experience, that journey took me all the way to Fulham Football Club at the time. And you talk about frozen pitches. I was driving from my place in Surrey to Craven Cottage one game day, and it was literally snowing down like you can't believe. And I'm driving through Putney High Street just before getting to Craven Cottage, think to myself, tell you what, they're going to send us back home. There's no ways we're going to play this game in such weather conditions. And we rock up at the stadium, and the referee takes out an orange ball. Said, "Come on, game's on."
Go.
There we go. And that was my first real test with playing with the orange ball in the white snow. But what an experience!
Fun memories, I'm
fun
sure.
memories, absolute fun memories. Yeah.
So, I mean, as you said, '96 was an incredible moment for South African football. I mean, as you said, kick-started a lot of careers. And when that tournament sort of ended, you guys were champions of Africa. It was the first time. I mean, South Africa had been in isolation for so long. That must have been an incredibly proud moment. Did it dawn on you what impact it would have at that time? Because it was a truly remarkable performance from a very talented group of players.
It was, and it never at any stage dawned on us in the build-up to the tournament itself, because all of a sudden we were not supposed to host the tournament. And all of a sudden we're going, "Hey guys, would you host this for us?" And still we went, "Yeah, no problem. Fantastic. Give us an opportunity to play on the biggest stage of African football against some of the best African countries." And we thought, well, what a good opportunity that was. Now, bear in mind, leading up to the tournament, we had a baptism of fire in international football from 1992 all the way through, hosting it in 96. And we never at any stage felt like we could compete with any of those teams. But we thought, hey, what a great opportunity for us to just, see how we go against the best in Africa. Yeah. And that's what it was. And so Clive Barker started his, he started building this squad of players where he thought, I need a group of individuals who I can mold together. And he did that so remarkably well. Everybody knew what their roles were, what was expected of them. And yet still going into the tournament, that opening game against Cameroon, we thought, oh, what a team this is. Let's just go and see how we can compete against them. And I remember it like it was yesterday. After that 3-0 result in the opening game, he sat us down in the change room after and said, we could win this.
Wow.
And I literally, to this day, saw the belief on every single teammate around me as he said those words. And I think that was the sort of invite, if you like, the challenge, or throwing down the gauntlet when everybody said, yeah, we could win this.
That's incredible, man. Take us inside that change room. I mean, there were some larger-than-life characters in that change room. Big personalities, talented players, but like you said, as a collective, the common goal was clear. And after that result, you're going, hey, maybe the coach is onto something here. Maybe we can.
Yeah, and the belief was instant. It really was. You speak about larger-than-life characters. The nation builder, as he calls himself. He was one of those larger-than-life characters, both on and off the field. When you're stuck with a group for 6-8 weeks before and during the tournament, you need an escape. And Williams was one of those escapes. He was always joyful. He was always getting the guys going, having a laugh, that kind of thing. And everybody responded to that. So your different characters were there. I remember in the build-up to the Nations Cup, we used to play all these Simba Four Nations tournaments. It was a real good sort of tester for us. We'd invite these top African sides to come and play in the tournament, and that was our development, really. You're looking at a team at the time, or a group of players at the time, who didn't come from any real development in their careers, because all of a sudden we were thrust back into international football, and their development literally was at club level. And I speak about lack of development in a sense that my very first goalkeeper coach I got was at the age of 25, and that goalkeeper coach was Clive Barker himself.
Wow.
So he was very particular about giving the time to specific positions within the squad, and goalkeeping was one of them, and he took the sessions himself. So that was my learning, and I remember in the build-up to it, one of the Four Nations tournaments, we played against Egypt in the final, and their striker at the time, I don't know what happened, outside the box, and he turned and he rifled one in the top corner, and to this day I literally don't know how I saved it. Just got a finger to it, and when I was like, oh, you beauty, what a save that was. And then Mark Fish at the time, he must have been about 21 at the time, youngest in the team, came to me and said, well done, but that's your job. And I went, hey, there's a bit of perspective for you.
Absolutely.
So we had all those characters in the squad, and that was great for everyone.
Gee, that's amazing. And when it was all said and done, I mean, it must have been something else. I mean, there's those photos of you guys, Madiba, at Safa House, and I often think, like, that must have been something unbelievable. I mean, like goosebumps sort of thing, pinch yourself moment.
Yeah. And yes, to this day, I get people coming to me and saying, what a fantastic squad you had, and you guys were great. You players were so determined and so talented. There was no way you were not going to win the African Cup of Nations in that year. I can't accept that as the only component to us winning that league title. It's just as though the stars were aligned and everything was together. from the political state of the country that was turning around, to the squad of players that Clive selectors, to the supporters, just to everything around it. And I think it was at the time where the association ran South African football for the players and the success that the players could potentially bring to the country. And that says a lot about the journey and how we set about going through the actual tournament itself. And of course, you're right. Our secret teammate or weapon was Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. You know, he'd rock up at our hotel every morning on the morning of game day to come and have breakfast with us and tell us how
That
important
must have been
we are.
wild.
Insane. And he was such an early riser, so he'd rock up at like 5 in the morning, and we've got to go to breakfast with him. But I tell you what, we looked forward to it.
Yeah.
His visit every day, and I can't describe the feeling when he left us on that morning. We felt like we were already 1-0 up in the game, and we hadn't even got to the stadium yet. And that was the inspiration that he brought to the team every time he visited.
And it's that presence, isn't it? I mean, I never had the opportunity to. I saw him from a distance in my capacity as a journalist. I never interviewed him, but everyone that I've spoken to, and Brian Mitchell tells the story of his phone rang one day when he won the world title, and Nelson Mandela wanted to meet him, and he was like, "No, it's Leon Schuster playing a joke on him." And the next thing, he's on a plane to Cape Town, and he said, as Nelson Mandela was walking into the room, you just had this incredible presence. Like, you didn't know what to say, but you knew you were in the presence of someone great.
Yeah. So he took the personal time to write me a letter after we'd won the Nations Cup, and I think he did that with every player. And he made reference to my clean sheet record that I'd kept. So he'd literally obviously done his homework. Clean sheet record that I'd kept and how well I'd been doing for the team, and it came from his office, and he signed it, personally signed it. But the true mark of the man was every time you met him, he would ask you first and foremost how your family was, by name, wife, kids, by name, and that just sat deep in the heart.
Yeah.
So that was the power that he possessed in terms of the support he gave to the team.
We miss Madiba. We miss him.
Big time.
Wow, that's special. You just blew my mind a little bit there, Andre. Thanks for that. You threw me off because I was actually going to ask a very pertinent question. Now I've completely forgotten the
We'll
question.
get back to it.
Thank
No
you
worries.
for that. But yeah, as I say, like that feeling of being crowned African champions, and we are harping on this. There's a lot more to your career than 96, and we will get to the incredible time that you've had. 436 games, I think we said, professional career.
Pretty much sums it up. I
And you
reckon.
were a late bloomer, as you told me.
Late bloomer.
So you've done pretty well. You must be quite happy with your career, though. If you look back now.
If I look back, I always wanted to build a legacy through my career, and to this day, as a reminder, I've got this particular slide in talks that I do to kids, corporates, football people. I built a timeline of my career, and my timeline stops off here and there, the highs and lows, the achievements, what it took, all of those things, as a guide to anyone who wants to build their own timeline, because it's important.
Yeah.
That's your legacy right there, and I'm very happy with how that timeline's turned out. I wouldn't change anything except for one moment in my life in the World Cup, but we'll probably get to that, I'm sure.
Look, I think people tend to take for granted what you put into a career. And I mean, you had almost a decade with Bafana Bafana. You've played, as I say, Fulham. You've played locally. But the amount of hours that you've put in behind the scenes as a goalkeeper, people don't realize how many thousands of hours it takes to be successful. And like you said, there wasn't a development program or pipeline at that point. It was the club football. And at that time, we had a very competitive club sort of scene that wasn't the PSL we know today. But you guys, the competition was stiff. Yeah. You guys were week in, week out, playing the best football. And I don't think people appreciate how hard you guys have worked to get to where you got. And I mean, there was a lot of sacrifice along the way.
Yeah, I will say it takes a large degree of commitment. There's no doubt about that. It's not a part-time thing. It's certainly not something you can do as a sideline hustle, if you like.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much effort and time required for you to reach the top level of your game. And I'm sure, as it is in any kind of business or wherever anybody wants to go or take their careers, and depends on the heights they want to do that at. A lot of sacrifice, and the modern day footballer cannot seem to grasp the idea that back in the day we had day jobs, and we went to training after knocking off at 5 o'clock.
So what was your day job back in the day?
So I'll tell you the story. I was working for Old Mutual at the time, down in Cape Town, as a junior clerk, literally junior clerk, filing paperwork and stuff like that, and along comes the African Cup of Nations, and we end up winning it. And I get back to the office, and they send me upstairs to the 3rd floor, where I've now joined the marketing team.
Hey, why not, eh?
I said to them, are you expecting any qualifications for this job?
No, you've got one big qualification.
And so that was it at the time. Yeah. And I remember, and they were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I sort of started to work closely with our sales staff at the company. And I'll never forget it. I got selected to go and play in a FIFA All-Stars team. And this was around 1997, over in Hong Kong. And we played against the Hong Kong 11 team because of the handover of independence back to the country. And played in that particular game. And before I left Hong Kong, I got a call from my agent to say, don't go back home, just come straight over to London. Fulham have got a contract on the table for you. And I was like, oh, fantastic. And my wife and I hopped a plane, we went straight across to London, and checked in at a hotel. And I was about an hour away from traveling across, first and foremost to Craven Cottage and then to Harrods, because Mohammed Al Fayed had just bought the club. And I got this phone call in my hotel room, and I answered it, and the guy said, "Hi, Andre, this is Harry Redknapp." And I went, "Yeah, right." One of those.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And he said, "No, I kid you not, it's Harry Redknapp. I believe you're in town and you're on your way to Fulham. I wanted you to come and spend some time with me at West Ham, and because he'd explained to me that Shaka Hislop, who was the goalkeeper then, was planning to retire, and he was dead honest with me and said, I cannot offer you a contract right now, but I want you to come and spend some time. We'll have a look at you." I said, "You know what? I've made a commitment to Fulham, and I'd like to honour that commitment." And he said, "No problem. You're going to be playing football over there, and we'll have a look, and we'll keep monitoring and that type of thing." And that was the agreement. And then an hour or two later, drove down to Harrods and signed the contract on the sports floor at Harrods. And the first thing I said to Mohammed Al Fayed was, "Can I use your phone?" I picked up the phone and I called my boss at Old Mutual in Cape Town. I said, "I'm not coming back, boss."
So that decision was made for you.
That decision was made for me, but they knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And they were very supportive. So yeah,
That must be one of your proudest moments, signing for Fulham.
proudest moments.
Yeah. I mean, AFCON was one thing.
Yeah, AFCON was one thing. It was the ultimate dream. Besides playing on the biggest stage of world football, the ultimate dream was to play in Europe, play in England.
Yeah.
Fulham wasn't in the Premier League at the
Yes.
time; it was a division lower. But what a great stepping stone that was, and it was a massive honour signing for them.
Some may even argue that the football is even more competitive at that level.
Way more competitive.
There's more games, more teams.
I tell you something. I didn't get to start many games.
Yeah.
In the Fulham first team, but what was such a delight and an honour for me was to work with Kevin Keegan, legend of the game. Loved the way he coached the game. He had very high standards, expected 150% all the time, and he wouldn't allow you to slack, and that's what I needed. and that helped me in my personal game.
Yeah, I recently not read, listened to his book, and like just how the Fulham sort of chapter, he was so excited and building that momentum and he was a wonderful character, and like you said, in some ways transformed the way teams played football because it was about attacking, but that work ethic was always there. He was always looking for that 1%. It must have been something just being in that environment all the time and just absorbing all that knowledge because you are a student of the game.
Yeah. It was the levels at which we worked. And what he did was he brought in Ray Wilkins, also another England legend, and the two of them worked together. And he was very hands-on. And what I liked about it, and I got a lot of development, goalkeeping development out of his sessions because what he did so well was combine, he'd combine striker versus goalkeeper training methods.
Okay.
And so that just got you working on such a higher level that you had to keep up with it. And it was really, really good for my game.
Do you have one particular game that you will always remember in the Fulham colours? I know you've played in many other teams, but is there one maybe moment where you were like, wow, you know, I'm proud of myself?
Yeah. So it's when he first took over. So when Mohamed Al Fayed bought the team, he straight away he brought in, because I was signed under Mickey Adams, who was the coach at the time.
Sure.
And then must have been about a month later or so, he brought in he took over the club and brought in Kevin Keegan and Ray Wilkins, and they brought in some of their own players. So Mike Taylor had come in; he was a preferred choice and that type of thing. But for me, what stands out as well is, even though Mike was the number one at the time, we had this sort of pre-season friendly, and Kevin Keegan said to me, I'm going to play you today. We played against Charlton Athletic. Sean wasn't there yet. We played them at Craven Cottage, and he said, well, show me what you can do. No pressure.
Yeah.
And I had a really, really good game. Commanding, kept up with it. And he was very impressed with it. And it's sort of so fulfilling, where you can go, well, I'll show you. And he liked that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the moments that stood out for me. And also, it combines with the one time that I didn't honor a national team call-up.
Shame on you.
Shame on me.
No, I'm
Shame
kidding.
on
I don't.
me.
No.
No, listen.
Because it's a
Shame on me is
contentious
not-
issue.
Well, yes, shame on me is not far wrong, because I'm very, very big on honoring national team call-ups.
Exactly.
There's no question about that. I went to Clive, and we had just secured a friendly against Germany in Germany. On that very same day, we were playing an FA Cup game, Fulham, and I was due to play. And I said to him, it's always been my dream to play in the FA
Absolutely.
Cup. And he said, go for it.
Then
Go
that's
for
great,
it.
though.
Yeah.
It wasn't
go for
bad
it.
blood or anything.
No, it wasn't bad blood.
And how did the FA
great.
Cup game go?
Brilliant. We won the game 2-1 against Margate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, of all teams.
That's
Margate.
the beauty of the FA Cup.
It's the FA Cup, and I'll take
Absolutely.
it. It's on the CV.
When you moved on from Fulham and your career sort of moved on, how did that sort of make you feel? Because I think when you start playing football, you never really think of the end. But as you progress, Father Time doesn't wait for anyone, as the saying goes. But is it sort of a mental shift that you have to make, to move on to the next club as you go? Because I can imagine that the heights of signing for a club like Fulham, which is still one of the oldest clubs in England. It's one of the most famous clubs. The ground speaks for itself. And I'll ask you about the change rooms at some point, because it always blows my mind when the players walk out and they're standing out in the open. It's not like the Etihad with the or St. James's, even the small little tunnel. It's Anfield.
Yeah.
But that mental shift of changing clubs, changing scenery, having to fit into a new environment, it must be tough.
Yeah, it comes with its own set of challenges. At the time I left Fulham, I wasn't getting a lot of game time, and I needed to try and maximize my time over there, because I'd learned from it the previous year. Because I'll tell you the story. 1998 World Cup year, and Philippe Trousier was taking the team to France at the time, came across to London and to come visit me, and I wasn't playing a lot of games, and he came to check on my fitness levels and see where I'm at, and I was very honest with him, but he said to me, I don't care, I want your experience in the squad, and I'm going to select you, and he selected me, and we went across to the World Cup, and I just signed a 3-year deal with Fulham, and the ruling at the time was, even though you sign, let's say, for example, a 3-year contract, you still have to play 75% of first-team games in your first season to warrant staying or work permit, for your work permit to be extended for another year, And I fell way short of that my first year. So there I am over in France, and I'm thinking, well, I'm after the World Cup, it's back to London, pack up my stuff, and go back home to Cape Town because I hadn't played enough games.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, my wife at the time, she went to their offices there, and she discovered that her grandmother was born in Burnley.
Oh, wow.
And because that was the case, my wife got a 4-year ancestral visa, and all she had to do was hop on the Eurostar, come and get me over in France and bring me back into the country. So to this day, we still chat about it and have a good old laugh about it.
Absolutely. So you should support Burnley.
100%.
You should not be
I
supporting.
should support Burnley. I should. Well, Lyle's given me an opportunity to support them anyway.
Great job there.
So I managed to see it all through. And then I got an opportunity to go to Oxford United. I had one of their scouts, Mark Harrison, who was the assistant coach at the time. He came and had a look at one of the reserve team games that I played in at Fulham, and then brought me across there. Had a much better time there in terms of game time, until I finished up at Oxford United, and then had to make a serious call on what the future would hold. So there's a lot of emotions. That
couldn't have been easy. Hey?
A lot of emotions that going into it, because my future was based on 1998, where I missed out on an opportunity to play in the World Cup, literally picking up a knee injury at the day before the opening game against France. And that was a massive
cruel,
blow.
Hey?
Massive blow. I was very emotional about it. I had the operation in France and stayed with the team, but obviously could not play a part in the team. And that very same day after having that operation, my mind was already working towards 2002 in Japan, Korea. And I had long discussions with my family in terms of how I'm going to maximize my opportunities to get into the squad in 2002. And ultimately, the decision was I'd need to come back home and keep playing and revive my career and get myself into good fighting spirit in terms of playing at the highest level again. And that was what we did in the end.
It's always tough when I ask people about what's essentially the lowest point in your career. I think missing out on playing in the World Cup in '98. Just take me there. When it happened, did you know you were in trouble? And what was going through your mind? Because on the eve of playing the host nation in 1998, that's what dreams are made of. It's like, it's the biggest stage of them all, and it's ripped away from you.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the emotions when Phil Masinga netted that goal that got us there.
Fair enough.
In '97.
Yeah, wow.
That was just celebration on another level. And our first ever participation in a FIFA World Cup.
That's when we actually did qualify for World Cups, right? That was...
I'll answer that question as politely as I can.
Sorry. But it's true, though.
It is true.
Off the back of 96, or the squad you had, and 2002, you guys had that team that were powerhouses in Africa.
100%. And we had to get to a FIFA World Cup as quickly as possible because you had quite a few players off the back of 96 who were coming towards the end of their careers. And so we needed to get to a FIFA World Cup as quickly as possible. It didn't go as planned because Clive had obviously left the job and that type of thing. But we get ourselves there, and fantastic. Everybody's fighting for a spot in the squad to play on the biggest stage of world football, and it was no different for me. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the last training session, day before the opening game against France at Marseille Stadium. we were doing a crossing drill, and cross comes in. I think it was Big George Kamantarakis at the time. He volleyed one my way, but I'm facing the cross, and as I turn to go and face George, who's lining up a shot, my one leg kept facing the one way, and the rest of my body went the other way, and I got stuck in the grass, and I could just feel the knee pop.
Oh no!
And so yeah, that was it. I knew exactly. I knew immediately when it went. I knew that was it, gone. I didn't know the extent of it.
Yeah.
Luckily, it was just a very bad cartilage injury that I sustained, but needed surgery, and
bad enough that
it would force me out the. I had the operation the very next day, so that was the situation, and funny story leading up to that. I wake up in the hospital, and I don't have anybody from the national team around me. So it's all foreign to me, and I wake up and I'm looking up and I see this male nurse standing above me. It's very awkward now because he can't speak English and I can't speak French. And we stand there, we literally eye each other for a minute.
Okay.
For a minute. And I can see that he wants to ask me something.
Yeah.
And he says to me, in sort of broken English, he says to me, "You white?" I went, "Pardon? You white?" And I go, "Hey?" I said, and the first thought goes through my mind. I said, "Buddy, I'm a colored boy from Cape Town. What are you talking about?" And he picks up this little bottle on the side of my bed and he says, "Kilo?" I said, "Oh, you want to know my weight?" And and that was us having a good old chuckle because we both knew that we were trying to get to a common sort of conversation here. But as I said, stayed with the team and did my rehab with them. Got myself fit again, and the work was geared towards 2002. So that was one very low light in my career. There's another one to come. Don't worry about that.
And we'll get there. We'll get there. I just find it fascinating in that space. Like 2002. You're thinking about like how do we get there? Obviously, there's the qualifiers and you must be thinking like, sure, is Lady Luck gonna be on my side for this one? But then you eventually get there. And 2002 was, I remember watching that as a kid going, this might be the great. That was my first 98. I don't think I was quite young enough to appreciate the World Cup at that point. I mean, old enough at that point. But 2002, I actually then understood football. I knew what the offside rule was.
Right.
We knew who Andre Arendse was, and it was just an amazing tournament. Like just to watch. I mean, being there must have been something else, considering that you were fully fit and raring to go.
It was a culmination of a few things. One of them, very, very hard work from 98 to 2002. In terms of getting myself into
and you were back in South Africa playing regularly.
Yeah.
And so Old Mutual.
100%. And so it was though the stars had aligned because 2001 I decided to come back and again my wife and I were talking about right what we're going to do, and we said we're going to go back. And as I said that, my phone rings over in London, and it's Ghulam Ali from Santos Football Club in Cape Town. And he said to me, so what do you think? What are your intentions? And I said, why? He said, if you're thinking about staying over there, no problem. You're thinking about coming back to the PSL, you're going nowhere else but just coming to my club. And the first thing I said, okay, well, tell me who's your coach. And he said, I've just signed Clive Barker. I said, I'll be there in 2 days. And that was the start of it.
Amazing.
That was the start of it.
That's amazing.
And a season later, I ended up winning the PSL with Santos. Very unfancied team. Won the PSL, won the league title then. And we're going into a World Cup year. And I felt like at the age of 35 then, approaching 35, I felt like I was playing the best football of my life. And I needed to, going into a World Cup. Why else did I need to? Because I was coming up against the likes of Brian Beloy at the time. I was coming up against the likes of Hans Vonk, who was the number one in the team at the time. And I knew that was going to be a massive task to to dethrone either of those ones in terms of the number 1 jersey. And going into the 2002 Nations Cup in Mali in January, that was the first protocol. So the association had brought in Carlos Queiroz, who was tasked with taking the team through the Nations Cup into the World Cup in 2002. It didn't work with him. Unfortunately, after the Nations Cup in Mali, he'd left. But Hans Vonk had played through the Nations Cup. So I wasn't expecting to be the number 1 in the World Cup, to be honest, but was happy to just give it my all. And then Joe Mosono took over the team and took the team into the World Cup in 2002. And I thought, let me give myself a chance here. And I played in some of the friendlies and really worked my socks off because I had to. And Jomo liked that. And in fact, I got my 50th cap in Hong Kong against Turkey. No score draw, man of the match performance in that game. And Turkey went on to be semi-finalist in the World Cup that particular year. So it was a good payoff, if you like. All the hard work and that. So I was very happy to play on the biggest stage of world football at the time.
Just take me there, standing between the sticks. The match is about to kick off. It's a World Cup game.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind there? There must be butterflies.
Massive. The butterflies were banging the drums. I can tell you that. They were absolutely banging the drums, but in a really good way. Just the atmosphere, just the realization that the eyes of the world are on you, and this is the biggest stage of world football. And so up comes Paraguay in the opening game. And what a game that was, end-to-end stuff. We ended up drawing the game 2-2. But I was called upon to make so many saves in the game and deal with the enormous Roca Santa Cruz. He's that one of the most imposing strikers I've ever come with. Him and Teddy Sheringham. Imposing strikers. And what a test that was for us as a defense and also for me as the goalkeeper.
That's amazing.
So not a bad start. Taking a point off it. And then we get to Slovenia. I thought we deserved to win that 1-0 as the scoreline suggested in the end. And that sets us up nicely with 4 points. And we're thinking, we've got a chance here. And of course, then you come up against the mighty Spain, riddled with talent and
rock stars,
and ability, rock stars of the game at the time. We head into that game, and I still keep my place in the team, which was fantastic. And I know the scoreline was the scoreline, but we more than held our own against that team. In various aspects of the game. In possession, we were fantastic. We played some really good football. They really forced us to defend and got the better of us in certain defensive moments. But it's always going to be the goal I conceded against Raul. And to this day, I get the odd tweet here and there.
Are you still, to this day?
I still
20 odd years
later, I still get it and have to deal with it.
But Raul was, come on.
Yeah, it was. Listen, I'm not looking for excuses, but that's the best in the game at the time. But it was it turned out to have a mental health effect on me.
Really?
It really did. It really did. And not so much the incident at the time. It was things around it. First and foremost, if I go back to the incident, let my team down, let my country down, my family.
Biggest stage
of world football. Everybody's watching. You feel like you want to spade, just dig it up and crawl inside. That kind of thinking, And then I quickly realized, hey, I've got to get on with this. The game's still going on.
Yeah.
And I remember it. After the game, it's amazing how the emotions play even further havoc with you. I'm sitting in, so my luck, I'm one of the players that's was called to go and have a doping test. Because they call you.
Yeah, it's random. Exactly.
It's random. So it's me. So I remember, and you got to remember that the final games all played at the same time. So Slovenia, Paraguay, they both playing at the same time. And I remember sitting in the doping room, massive TV screen above, and I see Paraguay celebrating. It turned out that Paraguay had beat us to the knockout stages, guess by
Goal
one goal.
Oh, jeepers.
One goal.
So that must have really.
Yeah. So then it hits home.
Oh, jeepers.
Then it hits home. And it was a very, very tough time. But I think where the mental health issues came in for me was on my return home. World Cup's done. We just got back into the league for the local league season for the following year. And I remember I was on a team bus traveling back from Toyando at a game there. I think it was against Black Leopards. And we sort of stopped halfway to pick up some food, and we decided to stop off at Nando's on the way, get the team some food for the bus trip and that. And I got out the bus and was walking across the road, and this car stopped right in front of me, and one of the occupants of the car got out with a gun and was sort of pointing it at me. But I didn't feel threatened. I've got to say I didn't feel threatened. But what he did say was that you sold the team. And you should have got the death penalty for what you did.
What?
So that hit hard.
Yeah.
That hit hard. And obviously my teammates were right around me, and these guys just left again. And so it's things like that it took me a while to work through, and to work my way around. And can I tell you what played a massive role in turning it around for me was... It was about 3 years later, maybe a bit more. I just signed for Mamelodi Sundowns, and Mamelodi Sundowns got invited to play in the King's Peace Cup, and it was in Korea, in South Korea. And the teams in our group were Real Sociedad, Tottenham Hotspur, and Boca Juniors. And that opening game in the tournament, we play against Real Sociedad. Guess where? Daegu Stadium, same stadium that we played against Spain.
Jeepers.
And I was a nervous wreck
can
walking out
imagine.
of the stadium. But I walked away with the man of the match award. We won the game 1-0. And funny enough, it sort of calmed everything out of my system. And that was it from there for me.
That's amazing. It's interesting you touch on the mental health side of things, and mental health does not get enough attention. And we keep saying how people need to talk to people and reach out if you're feeling overwhelmed. And I think we are getting better at sort of facing this. But we've seen Lyle struggle with Burnley. Your manager, Jurgen Klopp, leaving Liverpool after doing an incredible job.
Yep.
He is without a doubt will be a legend of Liverpool forever. Do you think that pressure, and you've dealt with the pressure at the biggest level in the World Cup, is something that we should be sort of teaching our kids to deal with or educating them about? Because for me, it feels like athletes, coaches, people involved at that level, it just becomes more intense every season with this global spotlight on them.
Yeah. That is such an important topic of discussion. And I think that it's a discussion that needs to take place more worldwide around the game. And we're talking football, soccer specifically now. You can never prepare yourself or be prepared for what comes with it. There's nothing that teaches you. There's no coaching course. There's no football course that teaches you how to deal with mental health issues. And I think that based on the pressures that people are experiencing around the game, we should prepare our juniors, our kids, through the development stages of their careers already. How we do that is very simple for me. What we need to do is make these young people, girls or boys, make them aware that it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. Because that's the learning part of it. And I see how it hits these young people so hard when they fail. And you wonder if they'll ever make it because of mental toughness or lack thereof. So I think that that's something that should play a bigger role in professional sport. Most definitely, it's something that someone, maybe they see a gap in the market, should take by the horns and say, we are going to build this part of professional sport to levels that will protect people rather than lose them to the game. And then that's going to be critical going forward.
And as you now sort of continue your coaching journey, your next chapter, I suppose you see it even more and more as you get more entrenched, as you sort of climb the ranks, if I can put it that way, in football, that pressure is, it's just the scale as you get higher up the food chain.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm actually beginning to see when, well, not see, but understand when head coaches of football clubs say they never unpack their bags. Never unpack their bags. It's literally at the front door because you just never know.
Yeah.
You just never know. And they're in a position where it's so quick to lose your job because it's a results-driven game that sometimes you're without a job for long periods of time. And the mental health issue kicks in immediately. And so that's a massive part of it. And you have to be, there's no doubt in my mind that at any part of the game, you have to be mentally tough. And if you can master that, or the art of doing it, then you're okay.
Yeah.
Then you're okay. But when you're successful, it's fantastic. It really is. And so it's difficult to explain it.
So knowing what you know now about the sort of turnstile of coaching, head coaches, I mean, is that still part of that journey for you? I know as you continue to evolve in this space, being a head coach, is that very much still on the trajectory, on the plan, the roadmap?
Yeah, it is a big part of where I want to go one day. I'm on my own coaching journey at the moment, and I'm starting to understand what it takes. I got a bit of a taste of it.
I was going to say you've dipped your toe in.
I've dipped my toe in, and I tell you something. I took over the team on an interim basis for about 6 games, the last 6 games of the season, and I kid you not, when you're standing in that little block in front of your dugout and you're directing traffic. And even though it was on an interim basis, I couldn't help but thinking to myself, you're going to get fired one day. You're going to get fired one day. There's no two ways about it.
Oh, my goodness.
You're going to get fired one day.
In that technical area
that's
going.
The pressures of the technical area right there. So you've got to be mentally tough, man. There's no other way to do it.
Would you say Clive Barker's been one of the guys that has shaped you into who you are today, not only as a goalkeeper, as a former goalkeeper, but as a goalkeeper coach to an assistant to an interim head coach? Is he? Would you say he's played the biggest role in your football career?
He has. Clive Barker, along with Gavin Hunt.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I'll start with Clive Barker, because Clive Barker gave me my first sort of full circle moment, if you like. Gave me my first international cap as a footballer, as an international footballer. I then, towards the end, became his assistant coach at Bidvest Wits. So there's my full circle moment. Gavin Hunt was the same. Won 2 league titles with him at Supersport United as a player. Now he's assistant coach at Supersport United. So there's another full circle moment for me. But what I will say, CS, is that I've been very lucky and blessed throughout my career as a player and stepping into the coaching arena to have worked with some amazing people. Oh, I mean, I'm probably going to miss a few names, but I've got to mention a couple. You know, Clive Barker, for example. Gavin Hunt's another one that I worked alongside. Kevin Keegan, the likes of Ray Wilkins, who was his assistant at the time. Stuart Baxter is another one who's actually an FA instructor in England. That's his background. So the learning that I had received, over my years has been just you can't buy that.
Yeah.
You cannot buy that. So as a player stepping into a coach, you take things that you feel could work for you. And that's what I've been able to do thanks to the quality that I've worked alongside over these many years in the game. And so the challenge for me is to put all the little bits and pieces together once I become a head coach one day. And that's something I'm looking forward to.
I'm jumping the gun here, and forgive me. So if Liverpool came knocking, now Jurgen Klopp's going, would you be up for the job?
No, because they wouldn't come knocking because I'm nobody in the game. Trust me.
No.
But listen, I mean,
obviously the next person in there.
Yeah.
Good luck. But you must have aspirations. I mean, would a Bafana Bafana job down the line be something that you would be open to or consider? I know, as you well say, there's still some work to be done in terms of qualifications and experience. Yeah. But imagine that full circle moment.
Oh, massive. I am and always have been a huge fan of my national team. There's a distinct pride there, and that goes back many, many years. And any and every potential coaching job that may or may not arise must be a consideration at the very least. If you want to, better yourself and improve and become one of the greats of the game, and there are so many out there at the moment talking coaching greats. You've got to be a student of the game. You've got to keep learning, and you've got most importantly for me, you've got to stay humble. I always say that the game should never allow anybody to be bigger than it, because then you make yourself nobody in the game, and so you must always be prepared to learn, and that's the journey that I'm on at the moment.
Well, I can tell you, and we've only got a few more minutes left, you are one of the nicest guys in football, and may that continue forever. I hope that as a head coach that never changes, because I'm a huge fan and I've always got on famously with you. And you're a great ambassador for the sport, so keep up the tremendous work that you're doing, Andre. Before we go, can Liverpool win the league in Jurgen Klopp's final season at Anfield?
Very good questions, yes. I'm confident they can. And I say this, and what I must be true to saying is that this has not been, performance-wise, this has not been one of Liverpool's best seasons, but it's also not been one of the other challenging teams' best seasons. So it's been up and down, and I think if Liverpool can mount any degree of consistency going into the remaining fixtures, I think they've got a good chance. Now, you're dealing with a bunch of players here who are going to go to the ends of the earth for Jurgen Klopp, and that means performances
it's
consistently.
Dangerous. Yeah,
and so the pressure is on.
Yeah,
but I think there are a group of players who can sustain that pressure.
And last one, I promise, Ray is going to shout at me, the executive producer of the show. He's like, time, budget. Who do you want to replace Jurgen Klopp?
Nobody.
No, fair enough. I mean, obviously, but I mean, Xabi Alonso.
So
who are you looking at there?
Yes, I haven't given it a lot of thought because the focus is on the team at the moment. Xabi's name's come up, and he's been one of the most talked about to replace Jurgen. What I will say is that Liverpool have to get it right.
Yeah,
they have to get it right. I don't want to see them having to change the manager 6 months down the line or a year down the line, because it's not working. It's not going to be good for the team. So they have to get it right. But I'm interested to see which names are going to be popping up.
Okay, well, come on. I mean, if you had to see a name there and go, you'd be, okay.
Yeah.
Because it can't be a Steven Gerrard.
No, it can't be. And I was hoping that, I think eventually, just depends on how Gerrard navigates his own coaching career and the moves he makes, I think eventually. But for now, the more I hear the name Xabi Alonso and what he's done so far, I go, why not? Why not? I just can't think of any other name, to be honest. And that's testament to the standards that Jurgen Klopp's brought to the club.
Phenomenal.
So I'm going to be watching with a keen eye to see who comes in here.
We could have a conversation just on the coaching roles in the Premier League. Andre Arendse, thank you so much. I mean, firstly, congratulations on a remarkable playing career. You've done the country very proud, and I can't wait to see what's next in your coaching chapter in this part of your life, and keep on being an inspiration and just being a fantastic human being.
Appreciate it, yes. And, dare I say that it's always been my absolute pleasure when we get together and we have football chats. And so may that continue.
So let's do it again sometime.
Let's do it again.
Thanks very much, everyone, for watching. You're watching the CS Duplessis Show. Shout out to Betway. Check out betway.co.za for more. Please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it.